All right, so we're good. What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Leroy McKenzie Jr. Y'all know how we do. It's the Brand U Development Series coming to you every third Monday of the month. We're bringing you information, resources, and knowledge that is going to not only make you better, but is going to take you to your next level in business, entrepreneurship, as well as in your personal life. So we bring to you those individuals. We try to bring to you those individuals that will bring you knowledge, their information, and the resources that will pour into you and make you better after the conversation that we're going to have than you were before the conversation that we have. So today, who I have for you, this is a guest that is a phenomenal man of God, and I'll say that first and foremost, phenomenal man of God. I happened to meet him earlier this year at a conference that was being held at his church, and we're going to get into all the things that he has going on, the great things that he is doing. He is a great visionary. He is a man who is about transforming the lives of other men. And that's something big that y'all know, that if y'all listen to me, y'all know that I'm big on. It's about making us as men not only accountable, but making us stronger as who we are as men, understanding manhood, what manhood is all about, the re-education of manhood. We don't say the miseducation of manhood, but the re-education of manhood. So we're going to get right into it because I want to spend all my time getting and talking to Bishop Abraham Shanklin Jr. And I say junior because I'm a junior as well. So I can appreciate that. So we're going to have our conversation with Bishop Shanklin. He's going to talk to us just about the great and awesome things that he's doing. We're going to talk a little bit about men. We're going to talk about manhood. We're going to talk about entrepreneurship. We're going to give you a little bit of everything today in our conversation that we talk, so that we can who you are as a people, not just men, but women as well, because we know we have women listeners as well. So we want to make sure that they understand too. They can have some understanding too, and take the same things that we'll be talking about, those same tools and skill sets, and apply them to themselves too. So, Bishop, I want to welcome you to the podcast, and thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and talk to us and have a conversation.
Hey, you're welcome. I'm so excited about being on the call and not only getting to see you again, but also having an opportunity just to communicate through this platform to the many listeners that you have tuning in to you every month. So I'm very excited about being on this platform today.
Absolutely. So we want to welcome you. And I always like to start off the conversations with, because I don't like reading people's bios, and because people's bios, they tell you, about who they are, their accomplishments and everything, but we don't really get beyond I like to go beyond the bio. So if you can, just tell the folks just a little bit about you, but not what is in the bio, but what they might not see on the bio about you.
Well, that's great. Well, that's something that you and I share in common, because I always sort of have my eyes slightly closed when people read my bio, because the bio never fully talk about me as the person. And certainly it is important to self-promote a lot of times the accomplishments that you make. But, at the end of the day, I have an opportunity always to share who I am. And that's what's most important. Relationships matter to me. And relationships cannot be formed through a bio. A bio sometimes is like a resume. A resume is an introduction, but we also know, just like bios, resumes can be embellished and bios can be embellished. So I really appreciate being able to share a little bit about me, but just a little bit about me that people don't know and would not really capture in the bio is the fact that I believe in investing in people. That investing in people is the highest desire and passion that I have. I believe in investing in vision. And being a visionary, I have learned that if my vision is not large enough to incorporate the vision of others, then my vision is not large enough. And so I'm really people focused, people oriented. Somebody said that you'd be amazed at how far you can go if you don't care who gets the credit. And so that just
I like
really
that.
creates just a passion for really seeing people successful, seeing people grow, because essentially what you do for other people, you shape them as seeds. And when seed is planted, if it's watered well, it will produce a harvest. Let's just suffice to say that it'll produce a tree that'll not only provide shade for you, but it'll also provide food to sustain you. So I'm really about investing in people, helping people, encouraging people, inspiring people. Anything that is people related is my heart and focus. And that's not something that essentially my bio is structured with stating accomplishments, but in reality, those accomplishments cannot have happened without people. And so people are the mainstay of anybody's accomplishments, no matter what, because no man is an island and we don't do well in isolation. So, so that's just me. So I'm Midwest born and raised, from East St. Louis, Illinois. And, and so I'm a transplant to Maryland by way of the United States Air Force. So I served my country. After doing a tour of duty in Italy, got assigned here to Maryland and finished my military career here in the area and decided to stay and progress through working in IT, owning businesses, doing consulting work along the way, and ultimately answered the call of ministry and been serving in that for a number of years. With the distinct purpose of serving my community. So, so that's a little bit about me. I'm a proud husband of my wife, Ingrid, of 33 years. And I'm a proud father of 3 sons and 1 daughter. And 2 who live on the West Coast. And I got 2 who live here. My oldest is an executive chef. My second born is in the music business. My 3rd son, he's a school teacher, and my daughter is soon to be a graduate from Towson University with a degree in nursing. And so those so that's just the little something about me. But I'm definitely about investing in people.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I want to thank you for your service, because those that serve our country in that capacity, it is not I take that very seriously, and it's honorable for anyone who decides to put their lives in service, for the country that we live in and everything. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And not only did you choose to do that, but like you said, you also chose to answer the call of serving people in another way, which is in the ministry.
Yes.
And let's start with that. I just want you to talk a little bit about that calling, and when was it that you felt that the Lord was calling you to the service? Because were you doing your own businesses and stuff before you got the calling, or was that something that came about after your calling?
That's a great question. My call came while I was serving in the military. So I got a call within a call, if you will. So while I was on active duty, serving in the United States Air Force, I was called into ministry, and it really started in basic training, and then on to military school after that. And then it became, fully manifested, if you will, once I arrived here in Maryland. And essentially, the call was beautiful because, as you so eloquently put it, it was a call that was put alongside my call in the military. So I was a call of duty to serve in the military. And I remember distinctively an impression in my heart where the Lord says, I'm calling you to another service. I'm calling you to another military. I'm calling you to another branch, which led to the decision for me to make that leap into the call of ministry and believing God directed me there. So the call is unique. Because I believe the call that God, everybody has a call. Everybody. I believe that everybody's got a call. What I know concerning, kingdom and marketplace is that God don't need everybody in the pulpit. And so with that, having said that, everybody has a unique call in their life, and they're just called to that unique space where God plants them. People sometimes tend to forget that David was not a religious man, but he was a military man first before he became a king. And so he served as a king over the people. So he wasn't a priest. He wasn't a prophet. He wasn't a preacher. He was a king. And so God needs kings in the marketplace, just like he needs prophets in the pulpit. He needs business leaders. He needs military-minded people. He needs contractors. He needs business owners. He needs people who represent all cross sections of life. So I think that not only is my call relevant as it relates to the church, I believe a person got a call to engineer. I think a person got a call to the medical field. People got a call to entrepreneurship because, as you know, sir, not everybody can do what you do. There are many people who tried to do a radio show and failed. Just tell me they weren't called to it. So you're on this because you've been called to it and you do it well. You have the gift set to be able to pull it off and be successful in reaching the people with the passion you have. So my call was unique in terms of this specific function in the body of Christ. But I believe all of us got a call. All of us.
And I always remember having a conversation with my dad, because my dad was a pastor. He passed away in 2012, but he would tell me that I was called to preach. And I said, well, Dad, that's not for you to say.
Right.
And I wanted him to understand too. And I used to tell him exactly what you just said, that your call ministering is more than just being behind a podium.
That's right.
In a pulpit. I said, so the things that I may do, I said, it's still ministry.
Yes.
And it's still a form of ministering to people.
Right.
And I'm accomplishing the same thing, because what I do, the foundation of what I do as far as my business and touching people and everything like that, is still under the same assignment or mission of bringing people into the kingdom.
That's
now,
right.
like you said, it's just done through the marketplace.
That's right.
Versus in a church building and everything.
That's
but
right.
But those things are the same. So I totally wholeheartedly agree and see exactly what you just said about the importance of the church having prophets and having people in the marketplace as well, because you do need both. And when you have both that operate from the same mindset of kingdom, putting kingdom first,
that's right.
People get it from both ways, whether they're coming into the church building or whether they're coming into an encounter with someone who has God in there, not only just in them, but in their business too.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Because there's some folks that we know that may call themselves Christians or call themselves Christians and everything, that have businesses, but they won't even mention the name of Jesus or God within their business.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
So, but when you have those that are unashamedly in love with God, everything that they do, true to me, emanates from that premise of having God in it.
Right. That's exactly right. That's right.
And I think that's important. So that's awesome. Now, when did you feel as if, I want you to talk a little bit about on the entrepreneurship side and the business side that you do, and we'll talk some about all that you do from a business perspective, and even because running the church is a business, and a lot of people don't really understand that. So can you talk a little bit about, I guess, from what you do, not only as Dr. Bishop Dr. Abraham Franklin, the minister, but also the businessman as well?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I think a large part of what I wanted to do as I got older and as I navigated ministry is I wanted personally to be defined more than just a preacher in the pulpit. I didn't want to be defined just as when I went into particularly when I went into the marketplace and say I'm in a business mixer or I'm connecting with other entrepreneurs in the community, I didn't want to walk in through the door and somebody immediately, if they knew that I was Bishop Abraham Shanklin, that they would essentially begin to narrow my influence and my impact as it only relates to the church. So a part of this entrepreneurial arm for me, and so part of that, I also have to give thanks to my father, because my father is where I got the entrepreneur bug, because he was an entrepreneur. He was a serial entrepreneur, always starting, businesses ever since when I was a little young kid, that he would start businesses. He was able to start a business, own a business, sell a business, manage, and be very successful at it. And he's since been deceased, as your father has been. And so I got that entrepreneur spirit from him. And so a part of really cultivating that was not just merely wanting to be defined as a preacher in a church. If I wanted to transcend the community, I need to make sure the community saw me more than just a preacher, but to see me as, a community activist, as a leader. And the entrepreneurship was a way to tap in to those in our congregation and in our community who had a desire to start their own business and be their independent owners and be self-sufficient in some way. And so most of the time we teach people to go to college, and when they go to college, join some corporation and then labor through the tiers of, management until you make it to the top, which we know that definitely doesn't happen. But very rarely do we cultivate that entrepreneur spirit, which here's the funny part about it is most, majority of the businesses that have been established started because somebody had an idea. Somebody decided to start their own business. No, the government don't start business, because the government is the worst business owner and manager on the planet.
Come on now.
The government to know about doing business. Because listen, if we manage things the way the government do, all of us will be out of business. If I'm in a business and I don't ever turn a profit, when you say at some point that would be a failure. And so our government never turns a profit. We're always spending money and such. So a part of the reason why I wanted to cultivate that entrepreneur spirit is the one, I just didn't want to be identified only as a preacher. So I educated myself beyond that and get to offer, people something other than just faith. I wanted to take a holistic approach of being able to meet people where they are in my community. So what that meant, Leroy, is that I don't have to wait for somebody to come to the church for me to meet them. I can actually meet them where they are. And so the holistic approach is, I don't want to just handle the soul part of you. I want to make sure you're physically well. I want to make sure you're emotionally and mentally. So I want to make all the components of you function and operate, and you should. And what I know is that when it comes to physical, sometimes you don't need the church. When you're hungry, when you're hungry, it's not about something, a word. You can give me a word out of Isaiah, but a word out of Isaiah is not going to manifest a slice of bread on my plate when I'm hungry. I need some bread. I need some meat. And so that was one part of getting into the entrepreneur, adventures, was one, so I wouldn't be, held to that, but two, to teach the people, that this is something that they can do and not just sit back and hope for. So it's also a tool to release to the people that I know another opportunity for owning their own business. So those are the reasons why I really wanted to hone that and really develop that process.
Now talk to me a little bit about what you just said, because the importance of the church and you being a pastor, making that connection with the community in such a way. Because one of the things that I was big on with one of the projects that I did and talking about leadership, was talking about leadership from a family, government, education, business, and church perspective, was the church's ability to be, or the necessity of the church to not only reach the members, that it had coming into the church, but to be able to reach the community that it is a part of, and the importance of that connection, because you have the family that's in that community, you
Yeah.
have the government that's in the community, the
Yeah.
educational system that's in the community, the
Yeah.
businesses that you talked about that are in the community, and how they all interconnect with the church.
Yes.
And how that seemed to be something that that was very important to you, that that you kind of did with what you do and everything like
Yes.
that. But how,
Yes.
as a church as a whole, why should that be important to them?
That's a great question. You just laid out something very beautiful, and I think that made all the difference. And that is what your listeners should capture is our job. Particularly as a church, my job. So let me just make it specifically to me. Is not to always spend a whole lot of time talking about what God is against.
Mm-hmm.
I really need to be spending a whole lot of time talking about what God is for. When I talk about what he's against, then I'm really creating a narrow track, and making it difficult for people to transverse on that track to come and go. But if I spend a lot of time talking about what he's for, then what it leads me to do is to affirm that all of those components you just mentioned are important. Education is important. Being connected to body politics is important. Health is important. Housing. We affirm all of these important. The church sometimes has made a mistake of creating this isolationist mentality where if it's not funneled through the church or it's not about the church, then it's not important. God is not going to sanction it. He's not going to kiss it. But I'm reminded that God is the God, not just of the church, but God's the God of the world. And God makes an influence not just within the four walls of the steeple, the place where the steeple is, but he makes impact in the world. I think that, our ministry is called New Life Fellowship. And last time I checked, John 3:16 doesn't say for God so loved New Life Fellowship. It says that he so loved the world. And so the world is made up of even people that we don't disagree with. And so I think the big part for me as a church leader was affirming every major institution and entity in the community, because why? My church is made up of people who infiltrate those areas, who work in those areas, who live in those areas. So to sort of dehumanize those efforts because those people work in there is to really put pressure on my people, who sit under me. I want them to know that, hey, it's okay to work at the job that you work at. It's okay because God needs an inside man or woman in every institution in this land. Think about it. Joseph was an inside man in Egypt. I mean, he was an outsider who rose to second in command of Egypt, but he was on the outside. But he made his way on the inside, and God used him to not only, he wasn't, people, you would think that on the outset that he was sent to save Egypt, but no, he was sent to save his people. And so sometimes when people are planted in certain places, God has them there strategically to help bring strength and awareness. And so I think what was key for me is learning how to affirm government, to affirm, the Bible says that God created government for the purpose of establishing peace. So as much as you can voice against the government, if it wasn't for the government, we would have chaos. So government's important, education is important. As much as we have educational problems along the way, if we didn't have some type of institution, then we wouldn't have something to measure the quality of education that we're producing. So everything, it helps us to evaluate and either confirm or direct us where we need to go. So it's all important. So I just always thought that, I wanted to function as a church without walls. So that we always function with this question in mind: would the community miss us if our doors are closed? And if the community does not miss us, then we're not making an impact. I want such an impact that if the doors close, they'll be like, where that church at? Where the church that we depended on to give us voice, to give us affirmation, that confirmed us, that validated our community. And it just makes all the difference in the world for me.
Yeah, and you just said something really key, because I remember, and this was several years ago, and I was living in the area here in Baltimore, and this stuff was so much on my mind about the impact of the businesses and the churches in the community. And I counted one day. I'm driving around and I wanted to count the number of churches that were within a 5 to 10 mile radius.
You've done that too? I've done that before
Yes,
too.
I have done it. And Bishop, I've done it because that very thing that you just said, and this is and you said something that was very key, that I think that every pastor that may be listening to this, that will listen to this, that should be asking themselves that question: would that community miss that church if it is gone?
Yes.
And if the answer is, well, I didn't know it was there, or if the answer is like I saw, I asked myself the question: what impact were those churches having in that community? And if you can't feel it, if you can't see it, if there's no evidence of that church having an impact in the community, and I'm gonna say it, I know folks ain't gonna like it, what are you doing there?
Yeah.
Because that is the purpose of you being there. And whether even a business, what impact are you having in the community that you are a part of? And that goes for, like I said, that goes for the schools, that goes for churches, that goes for businesses that are in the community. And even if you want to take it a little further, even the families.
Yes.
What impact are the families having in the communities that you are a part of? That goes for every aspect of the community, and especially as a church. And I counted about 10 within a 5 mile radius.
For sure.
And I could not tell you the impact that those 10 churches have in that community. Now they may have, or may or may not have.
Sure.
But they were having to me, it was very little impact. I can think of one that I know for sure, maybe two that for sure I know were having a great impact.
Yes.
And one was right across the street from me. That was right across the street, and it happened. It's so ironic. The church is a Seventh-day Adventist church, and I grew up as a Seventh-day Adventist.
Gotcha.
But the church that was right across the street from me was my old school when I was growing up, when I was going to elementary up to junior high school.
Wow.
As a Seventh-day Adventist. It had become a Seventh-day Adventist church now. They had turned it into a Seventh-day Adventist church. And so I knew the impact that it was having in the community, because I would even go to the services, when I got a chance to, on Saturdays and everything like that. And I would go and I follow the pastor that's there, because I love his message. I love his ministry and the things that he's doing, not only for his, for the church itself, his church, but for that community that I know they're very active in that community around.
Yes.
So that's a vital part of businesses and churches, is the impact that they can have, or that they do have, in making our communities better.
That's right.
And I hope that folks will understand that. And maybe before we end, you can talk about how they can go about having an impact.
Yes.
Give them. We'll give a couple of examples of things that they can do to make sure that they're impacting the communities that they are a part of.
Yeah,
I think that would be really important to do.
That's great.
I know one of the passions I think that we also share too is our passion for wanting to see men do better. And I'm sure that as a part of what you do with your ministry and everything like that is focus on men. And one of the focuses that I do is men as well. But I know that you have written a book, and I hope you have it there with you to be able to show to people, because I want to get into this manhood thing and talk about manhood. I call it the re-education of manhood, not the miseducation of manhood, because to me there needs to be this revamping, this re-education of who we are as men. So can you talk a little bit about that project that you have?
Yes,
and we get into that?
that's that book that I wrote. It actually came to me. I was at a men's conference a few years back
Mm.
on the West Coast in
Oh,
California,
okay.
Orange County. There was about 700 men there, and it was an amazing time.
Mm.
Just seeing all those men gathered together under one roof, responding to the inspiration that was coming from the stories that were told, about men, being redeemed, men finding forgiveness, finding their fathers, men finding faith. And it was just, and a sense of a strong renewal among those men to recommit, to their marriages, recommit to their children. And it was just a powerful time. And so on my way back, I'm about halfway between the two coasts. And I was saying, to myself, I was like, I need to find another way to kick it up a notch to reach the men in my own backyard.
Mm.
And it was at that moment I got the inspiration of what was called the Best Man Project. And I
Mm.
started just writing some things down. And what it occurred to me is that when you are making one of the most important decisions in your life, and that would be marriage, you never considered being there without having your best man by your side. That's why it's
Mm.
called your best man.
Mm. I like that.
There was some qualities in him that inspired you to choose him, to
Mm.
go to him and say, listen, man, I need you to have my back on the most important day in my life when I say I do to this woman.
Wow.
And so I thought that's it. That there's some qualities that was in him that made him your best man. And I realized that those qualities is really in every man. He just don't know it. And so I just began to jot down some notes, got back here, and then I just began a 6-week campaign of just pulling men together and started teaching them the principles of what I call godly manhood and masculinity. I started just producing the principles that helping them to understand what it means in this culture of to be a man and what godly masculinity really looks like. Because essentially, we realize that whenever you want to know how something was intended to work, not necessarily how it works, because some things that we use, we may use it not for what is it intended to be used. So what I mean by that is when you want to know how something was intended to be used, you go back to the originator. You go back to the creator. Well, since God is the creator of man, then it just makes sense to go back to him and get his take on what he intended when he created a Leroy, when he created an Abraham. What was his intention when he created us? And then align ourselves with the blueprint that we were already given. So that's the godly manhood and masculinity is what was his blueprint when he created a Leroy, when he created an Abraham, when he created the men, when he created the boys that will one day become men, being raised by single moms. God had a blueprint in mind. That blueprint got distorted because the culture has been sort of jostling back and forth in terms of how they want us to be as a man. And we can't have it both ways. We either cut out by the culture or we're cut out by God. But you can't be either or. And the confusion has come is because we've taken cues from the culture. And it's been like that over generations. And so for the last generations, one minute we define masculinity as, don't get in touch with your emotions. You're not supposed to cry, and stuff like that. Be a man, take the pain and such, right? And then there was a decade that swept in was like, you need to get in touch with your feminine side. And it's okay for a man to cry. And then we come back to, if you're strong, then you too strong. If you're not strong enough, then you're too soft. And so just going back and forth. And so what I wanted to do was to be a part of the conversation of what is God's intent. What was his original intent when he created man. Start from there and then just roll from there. So I started for 6 weeks. I just met with men, and I had an opportunity to bring women into the conversation so that they can hear it, especially for those who are raising boys who will one day become men.
Absolutely.
And then from there, it had such a tremendous success that we end up parlaying in the book called The Best Man Project, defining godly manhood and masculinity. And that's how the book came to life. That's how it began essentially to take on a life of itself as I began to teach about some of the principles of what it means to be a man as designed by our Creator. Nobody takes a BMW. Nobody, and I mean nobody, takes a BMW to a Yugo mechanic and ask him to can you fix this? Do you know Yugo mechanic don't know nothing about no BMW? You know, he might know the general parts, but he don't know the specifics of what makes it an immaculate driving machine. You know, so it's always important that we go back to the Creator to find out what our purpose and design is.
Absolutely. I mean, and just I mean, it's just a couple of things that I want to pull out of what you just said, and one of the things that you just said about the mechanics, and one of the things that you do learn about cars is, and there's a difference between one of my friends said, there's a difference between a car and a vehicle.
That's right. That's right.
And he was talking about in terms of, like you just said, a BMW or a Mercedes Benz.
Yeah.
And the Mercedes Benz is so adamant about their cars,
yes,
that they have what they call master mechanics.
That's right.
They do nothing but work on Mercedes-Benz cars.
That's exactly right.
They have to know everything inside out, upside down. They know everything that there is to know about the Mercedes-Benz engine and all of its doing and stuff like that. So you wouldn't take a Nissan Maxima. You wouldn't take a Mercedes-Benz to a Nissan Maxima mechanic.
That's right.
You don't do it. You want to take a Mercedes-Benz car to a master Mercedes mechanic. Why? Because they know exactly from front to back about those cars, because that's what they specifically study. So it's important, like you said, in order for us as men to get back to understanding who we are as men, that we go to the originator.
That's right.
Created us to be what it is that we're supposed to be.
That's right.
And in order for us to understand about who we are. Now, I want you to talk a little bit about what you talked about, because we talked about that not even redefine. I'm not gonna say redefine. I'm gonna say the understanding.
Yes.
Of what manhood is, because you talked about the when we're as little boys we're taught that we shouldn't be emotional.
Yes.
That we're not to show our emotions. That we shouldn't. Y'all tough it up. You'll be all right. Get up, brush it off, and keep on going. But then as we get older as men, you hear, we want you to share your emotions. Why aren't you emotional? Why aren't you doing this and that? Why do we seem to not understand that that aspect of what we're doing to young men, and becoming men? And understanding that aspect, and then why our society now today doesn't understand that very simple thing right there about the confusion that you create.
Yeah. I think that's I mean, you're on point with the questions today, Leroy. I'm so excited, man. Leroy, I think that it has to do with who controls the information, and the one who controls the information then dictates how people see how it's disseminated. And the people who control the information, if they don't have all the information, so therefore they're disseminating misinformation, or if they're themselves confused, then the information they're passed out is confusing, or if it's malicious intent, then their desire is to distort it so that they can cause a mass confusion in the community. Because if people are confused about who they are, then it impacts everything around them. If I'm confused, watch this, if I'm confused of, if I'm confused about who I am as a man, that's going to impact my relationship with my woman, which will have an impact with my kids, which will have an impact with my boys, which will have an impact in my community, which will have an impact in my county, which will have an impact in my state, which will have an impact in my country, which will have an impact in the world. So if I'm going to fix the world, if I'm going to fix the country, I'm going to fix the state, I'm going to fix the county, I'm going to fix the community, I'm going to fix my children, I'm going to fix my girl, I got to fix me. So, you know, so it just comes down to who's disseminating the information. And that's number one. And the issue that you related to in terms of being, you know, what's been strong versus being, you know, tender and stuff, you know, I'll say this, one of the things that the creator, that is God, intended for the blueprint of men is that it's not either or, it's and both.
Right.
We are what's called tender warriors. We're supposed to be both. And so somebody compartmentalized and sliced and diced and separated and divided the very essence that we are. We're both of them. So think about it. If whether you are a follower of the Christian tradition or the Hebrew tradition or no, the Bible talks about the fact that when God created Adam, he gave him an instruction. He told him, I want you to rule, subdue, and dominate. That's the warrior in him. And then later he tells him it's not good for you to be by yourself. So he sends him a woman. That's for the tender in him. And so there is a tender warrior in every man. And we've got to be able to teach men to be okay with both. Because when he does not balance both, you understand, when you're lopsided, it makes everything you touch lopsided. So that's the reason why, and men they've been walking lopsided because they're not in balance. You know, you're not in balance. And when you out of balance, it's just like when your car is out of balance, you see one side's going to wear out quicker than the other.
Absolutely.
So you go in and you get a wheel alignment. You balance them tires so that everything is on balance as you drive. And Leroy, what we got men that are out of balance.
Ooh, absolutely.
Out of balance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I want you to take that because I want you to define manhood for folks that are out here today, because I think it's important that we get specific about this in this day and age, in this 21st century. Because there's so many people that want to say, well, you can't, they want to blur the lines, like you said. They want to blur the lines of manhood, womanhood. I'm like, no, there's no blurred lines with it. There is a clear, distinct definition of what manhood is. Now, it's comprised of different things, but there is a clear definition of manhood. What is your definition? How do you define what manhood is?
I define manhood, I give your audience my simple definition that I have developed over the years. And the definition for me of manhood is one who is self-aware of who he is in light of the relationships that he has. Wow. That's my definition of man. He is self-aware of who he is in light of the relationships that he has. That is the best way for getting a man on the path to know who he is. You first of all must be self-aware. And then being self-aware doesn't put you in isolation. It reminds you that you're in relationship with others. So manhood for me is defined as being self-aware of who you are in light of the relationships around you. That's defined. And then if you want to put, so that's what the definition I would give in the marketplace at a business meeting where I'm talking to business leaders and CNOs. But in the church, I would be telling godly men, it is who God has designed you to be in light of the community and relationships that you have. And so it starts with because when you're in face to face with God, it's just like what the Bible says, God is a mirror. So he reflects back to you. So in light of my relationship with him, he reflects back to me. And then when I examine that me, I also must weigh that in light of the relationships that are around me, because I am never by myself in this. I'm never by myself in this. Yeah.
Absolutely. So what can men do in this 21st century, in this day and time, to take back their rightful place? Because as you know, in our community, there have been many of men, and I'll say this honestly, we as men have dropped the ball.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to being in our rightful place, position,
Right.
and leadership as men? What is it that we need to do in order to be able to get back to that rightful place?
That's another great question. I believe that what a man needs to do is he first of all needs to get to the place where he must recognize that he cannot do this by himself. You
Mm,
know, because
mm,
if in fact manhood, if manhood, is at what I call both a pandemic and an epidemic. This
okay.
pandemic because it's men are having identity crisis universal. And this
Hmm.
epidemic in
Yeah.
that in the African American community specifically, we
Hmm.
have no real sense of who we are. And I
Wow.
believe that if we're going to get back to that place, we
Hmm.
have to acknowledge that we can't do it by ourselves.
Sounds
We
wow.
as men need, because the greatest, this from way back in early century, in the early development of this nation and forward, the best way that you can break a man down is to keep him isolated from his community. If I can
Wow.
get him off by
Woo.
himself, I can play with
Mm,
his mind, I can mess with his soul, I can attack his spirit, I can attack his
mm.
faith if I can get him alone. If I can get him off by himself, you see,
Woo.
because I once told somebody that when you by yourself, you're never wrong because you have no opposing voice to confront or
Absolutely.
oppose what it is that you're saying. So if you say to
Wow.
yourself as a man, I ain't no good, and you say that in isolation, there's
Bishop.
nobody there to oppose you. Then you
Exactly.
then you come up out of that room believing I
Mm,
ain't nobody, you see. And there
mm.
is nobody who can set that record straight because you had nobody in community to help balance that. So I think
Mm,
first of all, Leroy, it begins with men recognizing we need to do this together. We need to come
yeah.
together in a community, set aside our egos, set aside our differences, set aside whatever, and recognize that in this epidemic, if we because there's strength in numbers. That's still true. I was telling somebody the other day, man, what would happen? Just what would happen if all of the African nations remove the line that separated them and they formed an alliance? You know how powerful
I've,
that nation would be?
Bishop, I've said the same thing too. I said, because, and it is so true, but at the same time, they're doing, if you look at it with your, what I call the third eye, if
Yes.
you look at that, exactly what you just said, keeping them in isolation
Yes, sir.
keeps them
Yes,
from
sir.
wanting to come together, because
Sir.
once that mindset becomes a collective,
That's right. That's right. Yes, sir. It's
woo,
powerful. It shakes things up,
it
right?
shake,
And
woo,
so it's from the old playbook that never dies. And that's if
yeah,
I can keep men isolated, if I can turn you against each other,
yeah,
and and I can speak from this advantage point because I've been a pastor for 26 years. It's sometimes the reason why the church community can't come together because
yeah,
you got one church against another church, one pastor
yeah,
against another, and at the
yeah,
end of the day, we don't own the people. We don't
yeah,
own the people. We
yeah.
behave like the church is our bride. The church is not our bride. The church is married to somebody else. So we
Woo!
we stepping in,
Oh!
we stepping into the role of another husband.
Woo!
You're not our
Yes,
bride.
sir.
So what are you
Indeed.
doing, man? That's not your bride. That bride belongs to somebody else. Your job is to steward her until the groom has returned. And so,
Wow.
I think that the community sometimes is reflective of the church. The
Mm,
church is not together, so the community is not together. The men are not together in the community because the men in the church are not coming together. And I try to always encourage the men, particularly in my congregation, the need to come together. We
mm,
cannot do this by ourselves. There is
yeah.
no way we can do it by ourselves. There has to be a deep, that's what God said to Adam. It's not good that man should be alone. That wasn't just merely related to him needing a wife. This has
Mm,
to do with it's not good for man to be by himself, period.
right,
Period.
right.
No man can be in isolation because remember, when we are interacting with each other on a human level, we are mirrors to each other. You are a mirror
Mm,
to me. When you were sharing with me your passion for men, it immediately reflected what was deep in me. to have a passion for men. And so we began to feed off each other, and within a matter of moments, we connected. And, you know, and we ain't stopped wanting to connect after that. That's what mirrors
Absolutely.
does. Mirrors show and reflect. It reflects the flaws as well as the strengths. And so when we can come together and not be afraid, watch this, and not be afraid of what the mirror reveal. If we can understand that there's safety in the community and not be afraid of what the mirror reveal, we can get back, man, to the place where we're supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean, you just said something that is just maybe, and I hadn't thought of it from that perspective, with the Black men in our community, and how I would ask this. I guess if we were to ask Black men in the community, do they feel isolated? Do they feel ignored?
Yeah.
I guarantee, I know the majority of their answers would probably be yes.
Yes.
And until we break that mold of isolation and getting men to understand that you are not alone.
Yeah.
And that goes back to me, that goes back to what we're taught when we're little boys, that we're supposed to just be and handle things by ourselves. You can handle it, and not to depend on other people, because it's seen as a sign of weakness if you ask someone for help, or if you lean on someone else. When actuality, you should be leaning on someone else at times to be able to do things, because like you said, when you and I connected, as far as the passion for men, when men connect with each other on that level, whether it's a father-son, whether it's a son and a grandson, however that dynamic is, or just a mentor, a mentor-mentee, which is, you know, to males, it becomes a stronghold that helps you to be able to have strength and to understand that. And that's something that you just, I thought was really, really key, that you talked about there, that our communities, we have to, as men, we have to break the isolation.
Yes.
You know, we've got to break the isolation.
And you said something beautiful in the fact that when I go back to the metaphor of the best man and the book, The Best Man Project, is when I chose my best man, I didn't need him to help me get dressed. So I got dressed on my own. But because he was my mirror, he helped me fix my bow tie if it was out of place. He helped to brush my shoulders if there was any dirt on it. You see, that's so having somebody be accountable to doesn't take away from your capacity to take care of yourself. You should take care of yourself if at all possible. So it doesn't rob you from taking care of yourself, but you need another man on standby who can help make sure that you look presentable to the community, that you look presentable to your bride. That's the goal. But you want to make sure that, because you can't see everything. When you got somebody else, as you said, with a third eye to take a look and say, hey, let's brush this off a little bit. Hey, this is a little wrinkle. Hey, let me give you my pocket square because yours is messed up and mine's is pristine. And he make that exchange. Then you got another brother making sure you're presented well. And that's one of the reasons why sometimes people are afraid of Black men. Because of the stories that are stirred up and the things that are created. But when we're there to vouch for each other, you know, when we're there to vouch for each other, we take away that spirit of fear and understand that, hey, we belong in this community just like everybody else. And it makes all the difference in the world.
Wow. This is some great stuff for those that are listening. I want to start, if you can do this, if you can give us just, and we may have already done it, so you might have to go back on it, but give me, or we can talk about the 3 to 5 principles as men that we can use, because and we said this just before we came on. We're in the last quarter of 2019. How can we as men in 2019 strong, because I'm always about ending strong. How can we end 2019 strong in these last 3 months and begin to look at 2020? And what are those things that we kind of need to do in order for us to make 2020 successful for us as men?
I tell you that if you want to, for those of you who are listening to BrandU, the best way to end 2019, headed into 2020, is to start behaving like your new year starts today. So instead of waiting until December 31st, how about making today, October 8th, your new year? And if you make it your new year today, then you already have practically a 3-month head start into 2020. So that when you get into 2020, when everybody is just beginning, you already started 3 months earlier. So I believe that one of the ways to finish the year strong is to begin looking at today or tomorrow, whatever day. Start the day you make the decision that it's going to be your new year, that's your new year. We just recently, last week, we recognized there was a recognition of the Jewish holiday of Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is the Jewish New Year. So their new year started October 1st. And so all of the focus of beginning didn't start in January. It started for them in October. It's just a beautiful thing. I just think that if you can just begin right now at it as your new year, you see yourself getting a head start of things. You know, we try to coast out the year and try to say, okay, I'm gonna begin my goals, my resolutions and such, but make them now. And what you do now is a test of what you're going to start doing in 2020. It gives you, so essentially it's a prequel to 2020. The behaviors and the decisions you make, if you make them now, then you already know the tweaks you need to make before January 1, 2020. And you already got a head start ahead of everybody else who's waiting till after the party is over and the hangover is past. And now I'm going to start my year. So I believe that if you start today as though it's your new year, you're getting a head start on finishing the rest of the year strong. And your 4 principles, there's four things that I use real quick to help me, navigate my life. And I call them the 4 M's. And they're the 4 M's. It's coming out in a book next year called The 4 M's of a Man. And it's coming out. So your listening audience is getting a preview of what will be found in that book. But it's called The 4 M's of a Man. And for me, they are a way of me thoroughly and continually examining my life. And so the first M is manhood, and it has to do with examining myself. So I try to take some introspection on where I am. How am I healthy? How's my physical health? Have I been going to the doctor regularly? What are my vitals? Physical health for particularly, specifically African-American men ought to be very important to them because of our predisposition to so many issues. We lead in every societal health issue in the nation. And so I just think that it's important for every Black man to make sure that he looks after his health. Ain't nobody going to pursue you for your health. This ain't like elementary school where the teacher tells you to turn in your homework.
Right.
This is like
absolutely
college, where if you don't show up, the professor ain't going to call you. So real life is like college. If you don't show up, the professor ain't going to call you. So you got to check out yourself. So stand on to your health. If you on medication, take your medication. If you have diabetes, watch your sugar. So all of those things that requires you looking after yourself. Find out, whether or not it's time to go back to school, reinvent yourself, find another hustle. Maybe the hustle you in is not good, so maybe it's time to find another hustle. So that first M is myself. It's my manhood. It's just really examining me. The second M is my marriage. And it's a great opportunity for you, for those who are listening, who are married, to examine your marriage. Test it out. What's going on with you and your mate? How's the communication level? How things are happening? How's your intimacy level? How's your parenting skills? And so it's a good way to do some examination. This also applies if you're single. So if you're out there and you're listening regularly to this broadcast and you're listening today and you're not married, how about this? You're married to something. So check the status of what you're married to. You might be married to your job. You might be married to something
Woo.
else. So check to see if that's healthy. If you put in more time in that job and ain't getting nowhere, you might then need to switch partners. you might then need to issue a divorce. That is, put in your 2 weeks or put in your 3 weeks and start applying someplace else. So it applies even if you're single. You're married to something. Everybody's married to something. So check the pulse of what you're married to, and if in fact outside of your mate, if it's not going right, divorce it and get something else. But in terms of you're married to your husband or your man, get some health, be healthy. As a matter of fact, 2020 might be a good year to go seek some counseling. You know, counseling is not a crime. I know back in the day when we was growing up in the Black community, we was always told not to tell your business to everybody.
Right.
And it's the reason why we don't know a lot of stuff that's going on in our family history, because nobody talked about it.
Nobody talks
Right?
about it.
We never knew why Uncle Jake was crazy and stuff, but nobody told us he had PTSD. You know, nobody told us that he might have been bipolar. We didn't know that Aunt June was like that. We didn't know he was hiding his diabetes or he was hiding his prostate cancer. We don't know until it's too late. So this might be a good time, you know, for you married men out there listening. Go to a counselor, swallow your pride and go to a counselor. And just sit, you know, you take your car to get the oil change, take your marriage to get an oil change, you know, and get that lube changed in there so that it will be for the better. So that's the second M. The third M has to do with your money. You know, it's a great time to evaluate your money. You know, man, I got to evaluate my money all the time. I need to make sure that my investments are working the way they should. I got to make sure I'm doing some investments. And so this may be a good time in 2020 for you to evaluate the health of your money. You know, and stop trying to just get by and scrape by and complain about everybody else making money. You ain't making none. If you need to educate yourself to get that next level income, do it. If you need to find it, I mean, think about it. Look at some of our people in the past. Barry Gordy started Motown with just a few bucks that he borrowed from his mother. I just started reading a book by Phil Knight, who was the founder of Nike, who borrowed a small loan from his father, and now Nike is $1 billion brand, you know. And so it sometimes it don't take a lot if you got an idea. There's ideas all around us, you know. So maybe 2020 is the year to really get your business off the ground and start becoming self-empowered and making your own money, you know. So for the third M has to do with my money. I just need to make sure that, you know, my debt is right. I'm getting my debt down. I'm having increases of success in that. And then the fourth M has to do with my ministry. You know, so I got my manhood, I got my marriage, I got my money. The fourth M is my ministry. And ministry, I'm not just talking about church. Ministry is whatever you find yourself plugged into, whatever it seems that you're passionate, whatever you're giving your life to, that's your ministry. And you do a self-examination of your ministry. Are there connections you need to let go of and connections you need to find? So I do some self-examination with regards to my ministry and the people around me to help me get to where I need to go. So I just think for 2020 that if they're going to finish the year out, start as though the year started today. And then look at, take those 4 M's. Like I said, the book is coming out next year, the 4 M's of a man. And look at those 4 M's. Look at your manhood. Look at your marriage. Look at your money. Look at your ministry. And start examining in those categories how you can improve in those areas. And you'll be set to have a successful 2020 year.
Wow, that y'all hear that? Y'all got that? Y'all, I mean, that is just some phenomenal information. Now, before we go, how can people connect with you if they want to? One, if they want to visit your church, but two, if they want to have you come out to speak, and then also if they want to purchase the book. How can folks?
All they have to do is email me at either bishop.shanklin@gmail.com. Or they can reach me at bishop@alteredforlife. That's bishop@alteredforlife. That's ALTERED, the number 4 life, LIFE.org, bishop@alteredforlife.org. So they can hit me up with that. And then what happens is my team will follow up with them and give them information, you know, in terms of visiting us. In terms of wanting access to the book, or in terms of wanting me to come out and speak and to inspire. And what they'll find is that they won't just, they'll find that our operation here at 1331 Ashton Road in Hanover, Maryland, in Anne Arundel County, that our mission is not to be one-dimensional. And so it encompasses not only the church piece, but it also encompasses, we have a academy, a child care academy. And then we also have a health and wellness. We provide professional mental health services. And then we also have New Image Development, which is our business academy. We're in the business of helping develop entrepreneurs. Under our business academy, we've helped to set up and release at least 5 people into their own businesses. And they're operating those businesses today, and those businesses are being self-sustained. And so our business academy provides support with anybody who needs to secure an EIN number, who needs to know how to write a business plan, who needs to secure funding, who have, just need an incubator of ideas. It's coupled with our publishing arm, where we help people publish their stories. And so we are not just one-dimensional here at the Center of Transformation. Our goal is to provide those resources to help strengthen our community and provide a quality of life for everybody who lives within this county.
Now, can they find you on social media?
They can find me on social media. All they got to do is look up my name, Abraham Shanklin Jr., and they'll find me on social media, or follow us on Twitter at the Center of Transformation.
Cool. Now spell your last name for me so that folks can know how to say.
Yeah, Shanklin, S as in Sam, Hanklin, Shanklin.
Absolutely. Bishop, Doctor, it has been an honor and a pleasure to have you on here. The knowledge, I told y'all, the knowledge, information, and resources that we aim to bring you is nothing more than this example right here with Dr. Benjamin Abraham Shanklin. And I just want to thank you for coming on, sharing the information, sharing the knowledge, your knowledge and your resources, and everything that you're doing, that you do, to be able to pour into those that will watch this, that will listen to this, and that will hopefully take what they learned here and be able to apply it to their lives, and make not only themselves better, but make their communities better as well.
Awesome.
But we're at it again, y'all. We are at the end again, and we want to thank y'all for tuning in. Y'all know what it is. It's the Brand U Development Series. We want to thank y'all for tuning in. We will see you all next month. Y'all know what it is, the third Monday from 7 to 8 p.m. The Brand U Development Series 2019, Chase the Impact. That's what we're all about. We'll talk to y'all soon.